Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Monday, August 19th, 2024. It's the 232nd day of the year, and man, is it moving quick or what? 134 days to go, and strap in because it is going to be a wild ride from this point on. As if the whole year hasn't been wild enough already. If you were up real early this morning, you may have gotten a glimpse at the start of the supermoon or the blue moon, which is going to be with us for the next few nights. So you definitely want to check it out. Today is World Photography Day, and I am certain plenty of professional and novice amateur photographers will be getting shots of the amazing moon. So if that's you, today is your day. 77 days now ahead of Election Day and a little more than a month ahead of early voting getting underway in Illinois, Minnesota, Mississippi, and some other states. A completely reworked Democratic National Convention gets underway in Chicago, Illinois, where the anti-wall Democrats basically built a wall around the convention area due to massive protests that are already happening against the Israel-Hamas war, as well as demonstrators for and against abortion. An estimated 1,000 people marched in the streets of Chicago last night, thousands of police officers from across the country arriving there as well, as they did in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention a few weeks back. President Biden is scheduled to kick things off today and again endorse Vice President Harris for president. There is some big news this morning on President Biden, which I will get to after all the campaigning stuff. And for some reason, Kamala Harris will be campaigning in Milwaukee tomorrow. But she was in Pennsylvania yesterday, a day after Donald Trump was there.
You've got a lot of work, Pennsylvania, on your shoulders right now that you're carrying, and you who are here volunteering to do this work. And we're going to get it done.
Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and other key Democrats expected to finally lay out their policies this week during the convention, including more on the price gouging policy that she unveiled back on Friday and expanding the child tax credit, which Trump and Vance already said they were going to do.
In her speech yesterday, Kamala went full communist. You heard that? She went full communist. She wants to destroy our country. After causing catastrophic inflation, Comrade Kamala announced that she wants to institute socialist price controls. You saw that. Never worked before, never ever worked. This is the Maduro plan, Venezuela, Maduro plan of like the old Soviet Union. They tried it. How did the Soviet Union work out? It became Russia, a smaller version. It was a smaller version. It will cause rationing, hunger, and skyrocketing prices, just like their Inflation Reduction Act caused, one of the great scams of all time. They got it approved with a beautiful name, Inflation Reduction, because inflation under their system has been so bad. It's gone up much more than 50%. You know, they say 30, 40, 50, much more. People are being devastated. They're being devastated. But it's gone way up, way up. And they made a big mistake. Yesterday in her speech, I think she said, I had to play it back. You know, I love the playback controls you have nowadays. They used to call it TiVo. Now they have TiVo. I think it's the single greatest invention. It's better than television, because television would drive you crazy if you couldn't do a playback, right? Now I can play back. I heard the statement, and I heard that statement that she made. And I said, you know, she made a statement yesterday that from her time in office, essentially, prices have gone up by 50%, something like. I said, did she just say that? I said, that speechwriter is going to be fired. In fact, we took that section and we actually made a commercial on it. And we got the best commercial of the week. And we didn't do anything. We just played her back.
And this is the new ad that he's talking about.
A loaf of bread cost 50% more today than it did before the pandemic. Ground beef is up almost 50%.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
That's it. 15 seconds, the whole thing, maybe the shortest campaign ad in history and quite effective. In case you missed it, here is more of Kamala Harris's economic plan that even many Democrats came out against over the weekend.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
Oh, Kamala, it's not gauging, it's gouging. She can't even pronounce her own policies in an effort to tackle the soaring inflation that she and Joe Biden fueled on day one of their regime by strangling the oil industry. Kamala, in a blatant attempt to try to distance herself from the Biden regime, announced that if elected, she'll institute the following: 3 million government-funded apartments, $25,000 handout for some first-time homebuyers, a cap on prescription drug costs, which President Trump already did, elimination of medical debt for millions, $6,000 child tax credit, price controls on food. First of all, like Glinda, the good witch in The Wizard of Oz, to Dorothy, Kamala, you already had this power. Girl, click your heels, get Joe to sign the executive orders and call it a day. But we know why she's not doing that now. We know why they're not doing it. Kamala is desperate to buy votes, and she wants to use our tax dollars to do it. Of course, a certain segment of the population will actually fall for this. And another segment will see their taxes go up to pay for all of it. As for the child tax credit increase, it's a good idea. Well, of course it is. J.D. Vance already proposed it last week.
The child tax credit has languished thanks to the Biden administration because Harris has failed to show fundamental leadership. Chuck Schumer's been unable to get it through the United States Senate, and we want to have a more pro-family policy. One of the things you can do is make it bigger per child. I think we'd love to see it at a higher dollar value. And again, President Trump and I have proposed that. I mean, look, I'd love to see a child tax credit that's $5,000 per child, but you, of course, have to work with Congress to see how possible and viable that is.
So while the fake news criticized Vance's idea then, look at the headline right there. That's why it could be difficult. Take a look at how Kamala's idea is being covered. I mean, look at the difference, guys. The hypocrisy, it is frightening. So let's get this straight. The only good ideas Kamala has proposed, the child tax credit and the no tax on tips for service workers, actually came from the Trump campaign. I know it's shocking to realize that Chameleon is also a copycat. As for Kamala's price control idea, that's not an original one either. According to a Bloomberg Reuters analysis, when Venezuela's Maduro instituted price controls back in 2013, inflation skyrocketed to well over 1,000,000%. And as for Kamala's food price gouging narrative, that high prices are simply a result of greedy grocers, well, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, average cost for businesses has risen just as much as costs charged to consumers. Kamala is clueless. The woman who has never held a private sector job in her entire life, she has no idea what she's doing. Drug cap costs, etc. They're great ideas, but a lot of them are not in practice. Even the radically left Washington Post has been calling out Kamala for her communist-style policies.
That's Newsmax host Lidia on Sunday Agenda. Former special assistant to President Trump, Mark Lauder, and T.W. Shannon spoke with John Glasgow on Sunday as well.
You look at Trump, and he's rolling out his policies and doing all these press conferences, try to take some of this steam away from the Democrats. When they're going to announce something, they have a rally. Trump is out there meeting with reporters, taking questions for 45 minutes. But you compare these two simple agendas, and it took forever for her to actually come out and bring this agenda. Your thoughts on whether or not this would work?
Kamala Harris's honeymoon is now officially over. When the Washington Post comes out and calls her economic plan a gimmick, when former Obama top economic advisor also says it's not the right answer, you know it's bad when they can't even get the Washington Post or the former Obama advisor to get on board with this. Look, the American people know Kamala Harris is right. It's about the past versus the future. And in the past, things were affordable. Gas was cheap. The world was not at war. The border was secure. And what we already showed in the past, we can do again in the future. We do not have to go to her Soviet communist government price controls and free handouts for money to offset the fact that people can't afford to buy their first home because of Kamala inflation Bidenomics.
And TW, I mean, you look at this, and she wants to price control, government price control the grocery store. I mean, to Mark's point there, is that not communism or socialism when the government is now controlling the price fixing things?
Listen, John, this election is pretty clear. The policies couldn't be in more stark contrast. This is MAGA versus Mama. It is make America great again or make America Moscow again. That's what we're facing when we look at the plan Kamala rolled out. And I want to disagree with something Mark said just a little bit, Mark. You said that there wasn't much plan there. While she was not big on specifics, what she was big on was really signaling what her worldview is as it relates to what America should be. When she talked about reshaping America and going after bad actors, much like when Barack Obama said he wanted to reshape America, that's exactly what we're seeing. Communism, socialism has arrived to the shores of America, and it came by way of Barack Obama through Joe Biden and now to Kamala Harris. The challenge she has, though, is Americans remember just, a very short period of time ago when Donald Trump was in the White House that we were more free, we were more prosperous, and we were more safe because of those policies. I mean, again, when you're vice president of the United States, you only have really one job, and that's to wake up and check the obituaries every day and see if you're still the vice president or the president. But she was given an additional duty, and it was to control the border. She was named the Border Czar by Joe Biden. As much as she'd like to run from that, she can. And the reality is 15 million people have come into this country. We are not safe in Kamala Harris's America because we know many of those people that have come across that border have committed heinous crimes against American citizens. And the only thing we see coming from this administration is more support, more handouts, and more social services for illegals. We need to make America first again, and that's why Donald Trump, I think, is going to be victorious based upon the policies, not the personalities.
TW, great point there.
That's T.W. Shannon, former Speaker of the Oklahoma House and Senior Fellow of the America First Policy Institute on Sunday Report. Vice President Harris is scheduled, as I mentioned, to leave Chicago and do a campaign event in Milwaukee tomorrow for some reason. That, of course, is where the Republican National Convention was held. Donald Trump, meanwhile, will be making several stops in several key swing states while the DNC is happening. The former president will be back in Pennsylvania again. He'll be in Michigan, North Carolina, and Arizona all this week. And let's go back to this weekend's rally in Pennsylvania for a couple of minutes.
She's promising to hand out things she can't deliver. She can never deliver them. She'll never get them approved. Just like when she and Crooked Joe tried to give away student debt. Remember, she wanted to pay. How did that work out? Not too good. The students are saying, I love him because of student debt, but he got rejected. And this will be rejected even more so because what they're doing is a communist takeover of our country. Her plan is very dangerous because it may sound good politically, and that's the problem. And we have to be very careful because when somebody gets up and says, we're going to give you everything, $25,000 for a house, we're going to give you all sorts of little goodies, free health care, we're going to give you everything, universal health care, sounds so beautiful. And I told my people, you got to be very careful. I told the Republican Party, you have to be very careful. She's given all this away, and somebody that really isn't into it, we're largely, even groups like this, we're into it. We think about it all the time. We want to take back our country. We want to save our country. When somebody's giving, and you understand how bad this stuff is. This is communist, this is Marxist, this is fascist. But you know what? It's dangerous because she's saying that she's going to give away things that she'll never be able to get approved. She wants to increase the number of justices on the United States Supreme Court to 27. 27. I used to hear she was going up to 11, and then I heard it was 13, but then they said that's an unlucky number, so they went to 15. Yesterday, for the first time, I heard 27. We'll have to rebuild the entire Supreme Court because they won't have enough room for the judges. They won't have enough. And by the way, how courageous were our justices of the United States Supreme Court?
And there will be a lot of talk today about polling. An ABC News Ipsos poll shows Harris Walsh leading Trump Vance 49 to 45%, but with more people trusting Trump on the economy and on inflation, two of the most key issues. A CBS News poll shows Trump and Trump and Harris even across the battleground states, which of course will be the states that decide the electoral college votes. We get more from Newsmax's Tom Basile.
In the critical state of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump leading by just a point. And then in Michigan, a lot of folks say that between Pennsylvania and Michigan, that's the ball game there. A dead tie between the two of them. I want to dive a little deeper now into a couple of the other issues here, particularly the personal finances and the economy. We know that that's the top issue that is facing voters, the thing that they're most concerned about. Some good news here for Donald Trump. Take a look at this, 45%, and when you add it to stay about the same, it's a majority, and a solid majority of Americans believe that they are going to be financially better off or about where they are if Donald Trump becomes president. Not true. Only about 25% believe that they will be financially better off if Harris becomes president. If this comes down to the economy, these two numbers here are going to be really critical to any undecided voters and how this actually all plays out going into November. All right. Now, it's really critical at this point in the campaign to understand how to evaluate polling data. You know, bad polls that rely on an inaccurate methodology can be dangerous, whether their construction is intentional or not. They can feed a false narrative to the public, and they can even depress turnout. So as the general election ramps up, and we have less than 3 months to go now, be aware, not all polls are created equal. Right now, you're looking for polls of likely voters. Those are the voters that are going to be more accurate. Registered voters can also be fairly accurate. Stay away from those polls that say just adults. Those are the least accurate polls. So very important. When you're starting to look at these things now as we're getting into the home stretch, likely voters, really important to look at that LV or likely voter poll. The sample size and the structure are also very critical. Now, many times certain outlets will oversample Democrats as opposed to Republicans. It's very rare that that happens in reverse, and that can skew the data in favor of the Democrat. And be asking yourself, what is the turnout model and how accurately does it reflect previous voter turnout? One of the other things that we've been seeing, some analysts are saying that high propensity voters are oftentimes oversampled. Now, high propensity voters tend to favor Democrats. They are being oversampled, while lower propensity voters tend to favor Trump, are undersampled. So remember, folks, when you see the numbers, don't just take them at face value. Here at Newsmax, we report on polls that have a thoroughly vetted methodology to ensure that they are more accurate than others. But as we head into poll-palooza of the next few months, look a little deeper. And of course, keep it right here at Newsmax.
Thank you, Tom Basile, host of America Right Now, Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock Eastern. You definitely want to make that a part of your weekend agenda if possible. Polling is another big money-making business, right? Who are they polling? How many of them? What party are they from? Are they registered? Where in the country do they live? Et cetera, et cetera. All things to take into consideration. We know that the polling is extremely inaccurate. Aside from the presidential race and the DNC, you'll be hearing a lot about the report released this morning by the House Oversight, Judiciary, and Ways and Means Committees. You will hear about it, I should say, if you're watching Newsmax. The House's 3-committee impeachment inquiry finds President Biden has, quote, engaged in impeachable conduct, including an abuse of power when he was vice president and obstruction of justice as president to cover his family's global influence peddling to defraud the United States. So I'm sure you'll be hearing Chairman Jordan, Chairman Comer, and others talking about this throughout the day. Meanwhile, former Republican Congressman George Santos is expected to plead guilty today in his fraud case on New York's Long Island. Santos expelled from Congress, you recall, last year after he admitted to lying to voters about his education, his career, his family background. But the charges that he's facing mainly involve money. Allegations that include defrauding donors and using campaign funds for personal use. Secretary Antony Blinken is back in Israel today, pushing again for a ceasefire.
The focus of my visit is intensely on getting the hostages back, getting the ceasefire done. It is time for everyone to get to yes and to not look for any excuses to say no.
Secretary Blinken in Israel. And Russia is not only losing ground and soldiers and equipment in its war against Ukraine. Over the weekend, there was a magnitude 7 earthquake in Russia that experts say caused a volcano to erupt. So mayhem in Russia. Be sure to keep up with all of the news on Newsmax, Newsmax.com, and Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all of your favorite shows and guests. Shows like Greg Kelly Reports, Rob Schmidt Tonight, Greta Van Susteren, Carl Higbee, Wake Up America, and more, and analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, political analyst Mark Halpern, Mark Lotter, who you heard earlier, Senator Santorum, Judge Napolitano, and many others. Oh, I totally forgot the Swifties for Trump. I meant to mention this. Did you see this over the weekend? Now, this is a real thing, and this is potentially very advantageous for President Trump. There's a new group called Swifties for Trump who say after the ISIS planned attack on the Taylor Swift concert overseas, they're now shifting to Trump. And they're growing quickly. There was a huge showing of Swifties for Trump at the Pennsylvania rally over the weekend. That's no joke. Swifties for Trump. That is a potentially very powerful thing. All right, I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily Podcast. Subscribe on whatever podcast platform you may be listening to. Share it with your friends and family. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Always a rough day. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.